Hello and good morning, cinephiles. And it is October 11th, Monday, if you're keeping track at home. And that means it's time for the morning movie show to come back into your lives. Today is going to be quite the packed episode of the morning movie show. It has been 4 days since we did the last one, so there's been a lot of movie news accumulating, percolating, coming up to the surface. And we're gonna go through all of the big stuff, all of the big moments. So if there's anything in particular that you would like me to talk about, to discuss, please throw it in the chat. And if there's anything that you would like to see on further morning movie shows, and perhaps you're watching this later on after we're done live streaming, you gotta get down in the comments. You gotta let me know what you're interested in. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm interested in, and who knows if that's what everyone wants. It might not even be. Maybe I'm weird and lame. Who's to say? So, oh, hello, Rocco. Rocco's here too. Are you going to say hello, or are you just going to go try to climb into the sink? I think he's going to do the sink thing. So, let's get this episode of the Morning Movie Show rolling. Let us first get over into internet view, and please let me know if you're here. Get in the chat, say hi. Love to see your faces by proxy of what you type. So, the first, excuse me. The first bit of news that is in the thumbnail, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was something that the internet went a little bit crazy over the last couple of days, and that is the very first look that we got of Timothee Chalamet wearing a Willy Wonka costume. We've talked about this a little bit in the past on this show. Timothee Chalamet will be playing Willy Wonka in a film entitled Wonka. I think it might also be a some kind of musical. Excuse me for just 1 second. I'm just seeing some very strange stream stats right now. Why, oh, why are we going at 50,000 kilobytes a second? That's not what we're supposed to be doing. Oh no, it's got the same problem it had before with the last one. This might decrease performance for people watching on YouTube. Son of a bitch. And it probably won't let me change it midstream. So, fun. Come on, dude. Hello, Brent. Good to see that you're here. How is your Monday going so far? All right, it's still getting excellent connection. It still looks like everything's going okay. Oh, goodness me. One of these days, these streaming apps are gonna like actually send out a signal at an amount that is good. Oh yes, it is a Monday. I forgot to say that. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, if you're in Canada. And if you're not in Canada, what the hell is wrong with you? So Brent's saying there's no issues with the stream. That's good. I'm just worried that the kilobyte per second that it's sending is too high and that YouTube will have trouble processing the image, but that does not appear to be the case thus far. So I'll just keep an eye on things, and if anything goes haywire, y'all just let me know, and we'll figure something out. Now, to get back to the actual news at hand, which is Timothee Chalamet in a brand new Willy Wonka costume. Like I said, we were talking about this a little bit before on the morning movie show, and Mr. Chalamet will be playing Willy Wonka in the forthcoming film, which will be coming out in 2023. So let's get a little bit into this article from J. Kim Murphy over at Variety before we take a look at the actual photo, because we can take a bit of a deep dive into that, I think. So first of all, to quote the article, Timothée Chalamet has offered a first look of his upcoming film Wonka, taking to social media to share an image of himself in costume, including a familiar top hat, as the beloved character. The actor posted on his Instagram with the caption, "The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last," referencing a line spoken by Gene Wilder's portrayal of Wonka in the original 1971 adaptation Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Chalamet also posted the image to his Twitter, while Warner Brothers shared it through Facebook and Instagram. While plot details are still being kept under wraps, the Warner Brothers prequel will reportedly explore how Willy Wonka became an illustrious candy maker. The production is billed as a musical, with reps for Chalamet confirming that the actor will be both singing and dancing in this film. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And I think we need to really focus in here on this line about how the plot details are still under wraps, but it's going to be a kind of prequel where Willy Wonka becomes an illustrious candy maker. And I think that holds true based on what we are seeing in this particular photo of Chalamet from the set of Wonka. Um, just by looking at what we can see in the costume type areas, mostly, sort of like down here near the waist for his undershirt, pants, things like this. It's all very worn, kind of in tatters. Not a lot. Like, this doesn't scream very rich person to me. This doesn't scream owner of biggest candy factory in the world to me. Even his hat, very tattered, very wrinkled. You can see wear and tear on it. Um, Also wondering what he's looking at here, because I imagine there's some sort of like B camera over here that's trying to capture him in profile, which is why he's looking off. Or he's just taking a break and he was looking at something that was on the camera. That could also be a possibility. So, hard to really pick out anything from this in terms of plot details, and of course, they would try to keep a lot of that as secret as possible because you gotta ramp up to that trailer that will come out probably what, Christmas of next year. But from this, I think we can basically confirm that this is a before being a rich and famous candy maker for Chalamet, and he's overall is looking good. I think. I'm sure he will look even better as his character accumulates wealth and is able to do all kinds of fun things. Going to be interesting to see how they play into the idea of him like luring children into a candy factory. If that's at all going to be addressed, or maybe they try to figure out like why he enjoys luring children into a candy factory. But I guess that's just one thing we're going to have to wait and see. There probably won't be a photo posted to Twitter that gives us insight into that. So, I don't know. What does everyone here in the chat think about this look as we see its likes slowly start to go up? It's only got 400,000 likes. Clearly, people don't like it that much. But yeah, I'm into this. I think if you were to just show me this picture without context, I would look at it and say, "Oh, I think he's doing a Willy Wonka type thing," or maybe he's a very colorful Jack the Ripper. That could also be what he is. This coat isn't actually magenta. It's the color of the blood of all of his victims. Jack the Ripper and Willy Wonka are the same person, confirmed. Looks like I'm starting to have frame rate issues. Wonderful, wonderful. Just streaming is the best, guys. I love it. Just going to go over to chat quickly, and we have Dory saying, hello, Dory, good morning, saying that it's Indigenous Day in the USA. Right on. We just had a very similar day like that in Canada. Although, from the sounds of it, for you, it might actually be a proper federal holiday, whereas for us, it was suggested to be a federal holiday, and then certain provinces decided to have it not be one of those, which is a super cool way of trying to bring truth and reconciliation to the indigenous communities. Tell them they're not worthy enough of an actual holiday. We do a lot of stupid things here in Canada. We do a lot of stupid things. Okay, so now that I think we've got this Wonka talk out of the way, it is time to start talking about No Time to Die and then get into box office performances over the weekend, because there is a lot to talk about in that regard. First of all, No Time to Die, and trying to get people to go see it, trying to build positive impressions of it, trying to put Daniel Craig and Rami Malek in the best possible light going into the weekend. And for the purpose of that, we had a little bit of a publicity stunt, as I'm sure you can imagine most big movies will be doing around this time. So this is coming to us from Deadline, written by Tom Tapp. Daniel Craig and Rami Malek surprise audience at Burbank IMAX before No Time to Die showing. I've always dreamed that this is going to happen to me one day, where I just go to a random early show on a Thursday and like some star pops out of the side and they're like, hey, thanks for coming. I think the only time that actually happened was when I went to see a secret screening of Sound of Metal at TIFF, and Riz Ahmed and the director showed up, and they like weren't supposed to be there, or we didn't know if they were going to be there on time. So that was maybe the one time, but it was still at a festival, so you kind of expected it. But let's get into this article a little bit about Daniel Craig and Rami Malek. So both Craig and Malek took their Mutual Admiration Society to the AMC in Burbank as a socially distanced audience prepared to watch Craig's final outing as 007 on the cinema's IMAX screen. The No Time to Die duo, who have been appearing together all week, appeared from stage left. I'd like to introduce you to someone, said Craig to cheers from the audience. This is the great Oscar-winning actor Mr. Rami Malek. And it's kind for him to call him an Oscar-winning actor, even though he did win an Oscar. I feel like Rami Malek maybe should. Well, I don't know. I guess that Queen movie, maybe he deserved to win a Best Actor for that. I mostly still have bad feelings about that movie. But Malek was not to be outdone. Thank you, he said, and this is one of the greatest actors of all time. This is Daniel Craig. The audience and Craig got a laugh out of that before the film star went on to intro their work. We made this movie in IMAX, Craig told the crowd. I haven't seen this movie in IMAX. It was made to be seen on a big screen. He continued, I can't tell you how overwhelmed and happy and exhilarated I am by the fact that you guys are sitting in the cinema about to watch this movie on this screen. Malek was effusive and genuine in his praise for Craig on Deadline's Hero Nation podcast this week. And then I guess we get a bit more into things that Malek said. The footage of their Burbank appearance was posted by none other than AMC Theaters chairman Adam Aaron, who wrote above the clip, "This is so cool. Wonderful things happen for AMC Theater guests. Daniel Craig and Rami Malek surprised our moviegoers just before a sneak peek early screening of No Time to Die at the AMC Burbank at IMAX screen. The name is Bond, James Bond." Now, I don't really think we need to watch this video. I think this article did a pretty good job of outlining what was actually going on. But man, it would be nice. Man, it would be nice to actually have this happen. And I think Dory in the chat is echoing something that we can all agree with. I would not be impressed. I want Ana de Armas to show up. And yes, I think Ana de Armas showing up and introing the movie would actually be a lot more fun. It would be cool, of course, to see Daniel Craig. Maybe Daniel Craig and Ana de Armas. And they can do like a play fight type thing where they're doing their karate stuff. And I guess maybe we can talk a bit about No Time to Die, although let's do that after we get into some of the box office stuff first. But I guess just to end off on this, I really, truly wish that one day I will be able to sit in a theater and have a Hollywood celebrity just surprise everybody and say, oh my God, someone famous is right there. They're right there. That'd be pretty fun. So moving on to the box office, first we're going to take a look at the domestic box office. This is coming to us from Rebecca Rubin over at Variety, and this was posted yesterday morning at 8:30. So this is, people pretty much know who or what films are going to make on the Sunday, so we can have a pretty good idea that this is going to be accurate, even though it was posted yesterday. So to read the headline, No Time to Die debuts slightly behind expectations with 56 million, which means that if this is talking for its full release weekend, that it debuted under what Venom did, which is insane to me if that is actually true. I don't know why my phone just beeped at me, but it did. So to read the article a bit, hopefully get some more context and some more details about the movie that we won't spoil, Brent. Don't worry. I will give you no Time to Die spoilers. The latest installment in the James Bond franchise debuted to $56 million across 4,407 theaters at the domestic box office, a result that falls somewhat short of expectations and signals that even one of the most storied brands in film history is still being forced to contend with a movie-going landscape that has been dramatically altered by the pandemic. And something I'm just going to point out before we get further into this is that when it says 4,407 theaters, that can be a little misleading. And in fact, I can show you a reason why I think this number ended up being so low. This, of course, will only have anything to do with living in Toronto and going to see a movie, but And we just want to take a look at two of the big downtown Toronto theaters. So like, 14 screens and 24 screens. I think I noticed something interesting when I was looking at tickets for other things. So we look at No Time to Die at the Yonge and Dundas, which is the has the most screens out of any downtown theater in Toronto. We can see here that No Time to Die is playing in one, two, three, four, five screens at the most. And all of them are premium screens. None of them are regular theaters. And we go down to Venom, which has already been out for a week now, and it is in approximately one. These two are the same theater, so it'd be one, two, one and two, and then three, four, five. So it's playing in about five theaters as well. So the same number of overall screens, but the film came out a week later. And we also have to remember too that that No Time to Die is much longer than Venom by like an hour and 10 minutes or something like this. So I think it even has less available screening times possible for it due to that. And then Shang-Chi is also here in this theater, and you can see that it's in about, I would say, three theaters. So that's taking up a lot of screens as well. It's more egregious, I think, if we were to look at the oh no, I don't want that. Get out of here. What are you doing, man? If we were to look at Scotiabank Theatre here in Toronto, and I know this is kind of like a roundabout way of making a point, but look at all of these screenings for Venom compared to No Time to Die. Like, you can visibly see that you have more opportunities to see No Time, or you have more opportunities to see Venom than you do to see No Time to Die. So we just want to do an approximation here. This AVX will be one theater, because D-Box and not D-Box are always in the same theater. And then it looks like there's approximately five screens doing regular stuff. And then here we have one, two, three, and then another five. So once again, it's like equal numbers of screens, but more screenings are actually available due to Venom's length. And that, I think, really worked against No Time to Die. It just didn't have the opportunity to make as much money. So even though we get this number of 4,407 theaters, we don't really know how many screens it played on across those numbers of theaters. And I think if we were to compare it to the number that Venom was playing in, it may be close to equal, and Venom may actually end up being in more, because a lot of exhibitors would see that it's like an hour and a half. You can have more screenings throughout the day and perhaps get a little bit more box office out of that film. So, and I guess the point of what I'm trying to say with all of this is that I wonder what No Time to Die's box office would have been if it came out the week before and its opening day was switched with Venom, so that No Time to Die wouldn't really be competing against anything else. And I think in that case, No Time to Die would have had a much higher domestic box office release. But with Venom still taking up so many theaters, so many screens in theaters, it kind of cut into No Time to Die. But we'll probably get a little bit further into that when we talk more about just the box office in general to see what kind of dip Venom had from week 1 to week 2. So, to get back into the article and talking about expectations versus reality, heading into the weekend, No Time to Die was projected to make 60 to 70 million in its first 3 days of release. Though not a disaster, the film's final weekend total was expected to be higher because it received positive reviews and represented Daniel Craig's final outing as the stylish secret agent. In light of the ongoing pandemic, assessing initial box office results for No Time to Die isn't as clear-cut. For some movies, especially during a public health crisis, an opening weekend of 56 million would be cause for great jubilation. But No Time to Die is no ordinary film. It carries a massive $250 million production budget, to say nothing of the more than $100 million marketing budget, which means that at $350 total million spent, it would have to gross 4 times that approximately to break even. So it needs $1 billion, more than $1 billion. Add in the tens of millions it costs to delay No Time to Die, which was supposed to premiere in April 2020 before the pandemic altered those plans, and box office experts estimate that conservatively, No Time to Die needs to gross at least 800 million at the global box office to make money in its theatrical window, and I think it's higher than that. I think it's much higher than that. For Bond, the franchise has numerous marketing partners and ancillary tie-ins with Rolex, Aston Martin, and more that could help cushion potential losses. Yeah, kind of, I guess, but it's still a lot of money. Getting a bit more into the international box office. Ticket sales at the international box office will be a huge factor in terms of profitability for No Time to Die. So far, audiences have been turning out overseas, where it has already made an impressive $145 million. Globally, the film has collected $313 million. So if you take that $800 million conservative estimate for breaking even, then they're still a little under $500 million away from that. Although I still think it needs to open in China, so they could get a lot of money from that market. And I think this is going to talk, yeah, and this is just going to talk about its comparison, Bond versus previous Bond films. At the domestic box office, No Time to Die's start ranks below recent series entries, including 2015 Spectre with $70 million and 2012's franchise high Skyfall with $88 million. The slightly muted results for No Time to Die are attributed to several factors, including hesitation amongst older audiences to return to theaters and its lengthy 2-hour and 45-minute runtime, which limited the number of screenings per day, which is something that I was alluding to earlier. It's also the first Hollywood tentpole with real competition at the box office, which is something else that I was alluding to earlier. Sony's comic book sequel, Venom Let There Be Carnage, opened last weekend and has continued to pull in crowds, which may have cannibalized ticket sales for Bond. With No Time to Die claiming the #1 spot on domestic box office charts, the Venom follow-up slid to second place with 32 million, which is a pretty good second weekend. That's what, a 50% drop-off-ish? That's probably closer to 55%. It's not a great drop-off, but it's still not terrible. A figure that's more than many pandemic-era releases have made in their entire theatrical run, which is true. In total, Venom Let There Be Carnage has generated a mighty $140 million in North America and $185 million worldwide. That worldwide number is real low. It must not have been released worldwide yet. And this then goes on to talk about the demographics of Bond and how that can affect it. I hadn't actually thought about this, but the idea that the audience for Bond likely skews a bit older because the franchise has been around since the 60s likely did affect it in no small way. You'd have people who are into Bond, like my parents and people from their generation, who are like, you know what, maybe we don't go to movie theaters quite yet. So that is a fascinating way of framing that. And then the rest of this article just goes into the rest of the box office. We had Addams Family Part 2 in third place, Shang-Chi going down to number 4, Many Saints of Newark going down to 5 with $1.4 million. And a little bit of an interesting tidbit here for the Many Saints of Newark. That puts ticket sales for the Warner Brothers movie, which premiered day and date on HBO Max, at a dismal $7.4 million. It cost $50 million to make, which would mean that if we're using my 4x calculation, it should have had to have grossed, or would have had to have grossed, about $200 million to break even, not including its marketing budget. So that sucks. That sucks a lot for the people who were involved in making that film. Although we don't really know what its viewership is like on HBO Max. So maybe Warner Brothers is looking at this as being not so bad of a thing. So now, time to dig in a little bit more into the international box office, because we got to see where the money's going overseas. That's where all the money laundering is being done. So to read this headline coming from Nancy Tartaglione. Excuse me if I mispronounce your name. This is coming from Deadline. No Time to Die races past 300 million globally. Venom 2 storms Latin America, and Disney topped 2 billion worldwide for 2021, which is pretty impressive. And I guess the thing that we can take away from this headline in regards to the last article that we looked at is that Venom, while still performing well at theaters in North America, has only hit $185 million worldwide in its box office, and No Time to Die is already well past 300 million. And that is likely in large part due to how popular No Time to Die would have been in the UK, and it's also had a fairly broad worldwide release already. It's been released most places in Europe and I believe in Asia as well, although I still do not believe that it's had its China release. But let's take a bit of a closer look into this. First of all, there's been an update. MGM Eon Universal No Time to Die has sped the Aston Martin past $300 million global mark, coming off an $89.54 million sophomore frame at the international box office. That lifts James Bond's 25th overseas film. I don't know why Kuma is being used there, to $257 million, and including domestic start this session brings the worldwide total to $313 million. So still about only 25% of the way to profitability, which is pretty rough. The overall drop from opening in 38 Universal markets was 32%, while MGM's 16 were off by 41%. In total, 66 markets were in play this session, including new majors France and Russia, where Uni releases. On 1,000 screens in France, No Time to Die bowed to 10 million, in like with Skyfall and setting a new bar for the biggest opening of the pandemic era while logging Universal's widest release ever. The IMAX opening was the best since Rise of Skywalker, although based on the language being used here, it sounds like it wasn't as good as Rise of Skywalker. Imagine being second place to Rise of Skywalker being a brag. And this talks to us a bit more about Russia. Ooh, actually the UK. Let's read a bit about that. Bond's UK gross has reached a phenomenal 71 million after 2 frames. That is very good for the UK. With just a 28% drop from week to week, which is excellent. It is now Universal's 4th highest grossing title ever in the market. Germany is at 32.7 million, off 22% from the opening, which is also very, very good. France is already the number 4 market on the Bond film. Uni markets total 204 million through Sunday, while MGM's are at 52 million. So Universal feeling a lot better about their money than MGM is right now. In like-for-like key markets, Daniel Craig's final turn as 007 is running above Spectre and slightly below Skyfall. Well, I mean, I guess that's good considering the negative reaction to Spectre. Like, it's I don't even want to say that it's better than Quantum of Solace, but I'd say both of those films are tied for last place as far as Daniel Craig's tenure as Bond. So the fact that the crappiness of that movie is not affecting people's anticipation or just their will to want to go to the movies to see No Time to Die is pretty good. I think we can all be pretty happy about this. And then I think this talks about just IMAX in general. Yeah, we don't really need to get into that. Oh yeah, let's talk a bit more about this milestone that Disney hit. Meanwhile, Disney is hitting a milestone on Monday, becoming the first studio to cross $2 billion in global box office during 2021. Which, and to put this in context, you'll remember that Avengers Endgame on its own grossed like $2.5 billion worldwide. So Disney has yet to earn as much money this year from all of their movies than they have from one movie. And it wasn't the only movie that they released. So Disney, I guess, isn't making as much money as they usually do. My heart bleeds for them. So to break these numbers down a bit more, this has been achieved by a combination of 7 titles that all grossed over $100 million worldwide through Sunday, including Shang-Chi at $401 million, Black Widow at $379 million, Free Guy at $327 million, Cruella at $233, Jungle Cruise at $212, Raya and the Last Dragon $130, and Soul at $105 million. I thought Soul was considered a 2020 release since we were talking about it for the Oscars. Interesting. And this, I think, is about all we need to get into in terms of the international box office. The main, uh, the main story being here that No Time to Die still has a lot of work to do, and but it sounds like there are some markets where it's continuing to perform well, which is uh, good for its long-term chances. If it still continues to only have like a 20 to 30% drop off at say the UK and other international markets, then it'll be able to rack up, like 10 to 20 million dollars a weekend for a few weeks after this week, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start accumulating it week over week over week, it's all good news. So moving on now from the James Bond news. See, Brent, didn't spoil it at all. But maybe this is now the time to give just like my general impressions of it because I didn't make a little video for it this weekend. I will say, and maybe I'll just frame my thoughts based on some of the reviews that I've seen floating around online. A lot of people complaining about how long it is. I think that the movie is long in the way that Zodiac is long. David Fincher's Zodiac. That is a film that's like 2 hours and 30 minutes, 2 hours, 40 minutes, but it doesn't feel long. And I feel the same way about No Time to Die. It's definitely a long movie, but the film is constructed in a way where we're basically going from thing to thing to thing at a good pace. And I never felt like they were rushing too much or that they were going too slow. It all just kind of felt like a very even, steady pace, which I appreciate. And also, this is something that I want to touch on specifically with No Time to Die. We've talked about the budget. It was $250 million. dollars. And this was the first blockbuster I've seen in a while where it looked like it cost $250 million dollars to make. I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of practical locations they used and the way that the film was actually shot. I actually wouldn't be surprised if this film got put up for a Best Cinematography Oscar. I would not be surprised at all if it got nominated for that. It looks really good. But it just looked like you can just see where the money was spent when you watch this film. And that is something that I just don't get from the Marvel films anymore, or even the DC films anymore. If you were to tell me the budget of like the Suicide Squad, I would just shrug my shoulders and say, yeah, I guess all of these actors are expensive because everything was basically shot in a studio, and not a lot of location shooting was done. And it just didn't look as lush and as vibrant that I would expect. All of the money is basically in the cast, not a lot of money being spent anywhere else to make the film feel and look expensive, or at least give you the impression that they spent a lot of money on stuff. Whereas in No Time to Die, it's just very, very expensive looking. It's kind of like walking into like a Rolex store appropriately and just looking at a watch and being like, you know what? I don't have $25,000 to spend on this watch, but I can tell why it's worth $25,000. It's like encrusted in gems and shit like that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. It just, yeah, it looks like they spent the money. There also isn't that much CGI in it as well, which I think helps. And like there are some very cool set design in No Time to Die as well, which I was super into. So overall, positive feelings from me when it comes to No Time to Die. I was into that movie and I will likely watch it again. Um, and I think also in contrast to Dune, which I won't get too much into because Dune isn't really out yet in North America. But one of the issues I had with Dune was that they kept switching from IMAX aspect ratio to like a normal, or not a normal, but like a 2.2 to 1 aspect ratio, or maybe it was 2.35 to 1. Whereas in No Time to Die, it seemed like they were very conscious of the fact that they were just shoot like a full scene in the IMAX aspect ratio, and then when they were done with that scene, they would maybe go back to a narrower aspect ratio, but it wasn't like a 2 point. It wasn't a 2.2 to 1. It wasn't like super anamorphic. It wasn't as narrow. So moving between the two aspect ratios wasn't as jarring because it wasn't as much of a difference. And also, it seemed to be segmented more of like, IMAX scene, not IMAX scene, IMAX scene, not IMAX scene. Whereas with Dune, they're intercutting between IMAX footage and not IMAX footage in scenes which is super distracting to me. And the aspect ratios were far different, so it made the switches even more apparent. And that is just a huge pet peeve of mine. I really wish the directors would like figure this out. Especially like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve now, like please look at No Time to Die as an example of how to do this kind of stuff. I would really appreciate it if you people who make like millions of dollars and get paid all the money to make these giant blockbusters, you should really listen to me today. I'm sure they'll see this. Oh, this green tea is not great. All right, let's move on to, speaking of Christopher Nolan. Man, I didn't even mean to do that setup. I'm getting good at this. Uh, so over the weekend, it was confirmed, and this is coming from Justin Kroll over at Deadline, that Cillian Murphy has been confirmed to star as J. Robert Oppenheimer, also known as the guy who invented the nuclear bomb, in Christopher Nolan's next film at Universal, and we get a release date as well. Nolan's film will come out in July of 2023. So let's see if we can get a bit more information about the film in this. I would love to know when they're actually going to start shooting in order to make that 2023 release date, because that's less than 2 years away, and Nolan doesn't make anything small. Although, just on the face of it, when you hear that Christopher Nolan is basically doing a biopic about Oppenheimer, it sounds like it could be a smaller movie. Like it could be on the level of The Prestige or something like that. It's not going to be a Tenet. It's not going to be an Interstellar. It's not going to be a Dark Knight. So I feel like this is maybe something that can get turned around a bit quicker. But once again, who knows what Nolan is actually going to do with this story. So let's get a bit more into this article. And to quote it, following a heated bidding war that led to his next film landing at Universal, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer has not only found its star to play the titular role, but set a date on when audiences can see his next movie. Universal Pictures and Nolan's banner, Cinemateq, I forget how to say that, have confirmed Cillian Murphy to star in Oppenheimer as scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who was known as the father of the atomic bomb. The film will bow on July 21st, 2023, so mark your calendars. A slot typically saved for Nolan films in the past. Really? That's Nolan's day? We have Brent chiming in saying, I wonder if this movie will bomb at the box office. Ha 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 ha. Funny guy. Look at this funny guy in the chat. Deadline has been all over this project, first announcing it as Nolan's next film last month, and also breaking news of Universal Pictures landing the rights to the film following a heated bidding war between almost every major suitor in town. Deadline just patting itself on the back here. The IMAX-shot epic thriller thrusts audiences into the pulse-pounding paradox of the enigmatic man who must risk destroying the world in order to save it. Universal Pictures will distribute Oppenheimer theatrically worldwide and will release the film in North America. And this is kind of why I'm like interested in this movie and how they are going to go about making it. Because like Oppenheimer as a controversial figure, sure, that could be something to lean into. But like, it's science, right? Like they're just doing the science of making the bomb. So while I'm sure we're going to get like a really nice IMAX shot of like one of the first nuclear bomb tests and all of those like fake towns getting destroyed during those tests, I wonder where the drama of this is actually going to come from. Like, will it be internal struggles? Will it be Oppenheimer feuding with the US military? And if so, is a lot of that drama just going to be in exposition heavy dialogue sequences, which are not really something that we want from Christopher Nolan. We want people driving big trucks down in the middle of cities that then get turned over by cables being shot out of motorcycles. Like, that's the Nolan that we want. At least that's the Nolan that I want. I'm certainly up for something on the level of Prestige where it's a bit more low-key and a bit more dramatic in that way. But even in the Prestige, there was kind of this conceit of it being a world of magic and illusion and things like this. Whereas with Oppenheimer, I don't know how that's going to play, but I guess we'll see. So a bit more information about it. It's being written and directed by Nolan, which if you've seen Tenet is perhaps not the best news. The film will also be produced by Emma Thomas and Atlas Entertainment's Charles Roven and Nolan. The film is based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning book American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of Robert J. Oppenheimer, or J. Robert Oppenheimer, excuse me, by Kai Bird and the late Martin J. Sherwin, who sadly passed away this week. That sucks. The film will begin production in early 2022 and will be shot on a combination of IMAX 65mm and 65mm large format film for the highest image quality possible, and reunites Nolan with some of his leading collaborators, including Roven, director of photography Hoyt van Hoytema, editor Jennifer Lame, and composer Ludwig Göransson, who also did Tenet, Black Panther, and Creed. So that's about all we know about this film currently. And I'm just going to do a quick check to see which one of Nolan's films this particular DOP worked on him with. Come on, Internet. You can do it. Filmography. So he did Tenet. Oh, he also shot Ad Astra, which looks pretty cool. Okay, he shot Dunkirk, and he shot Spectre. Did he shoot Skyfall as well? No. Okay. So I mean, done some good work. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy looks pretty awesome. The Fighter is a pretty good looking movie. Let the Right One In, considered one of the best European films of that decade. So okay, he's definitely been doing good stuff, and he's been working mostly with Christopher Nolan. And say what you will about Ad Astra, but it looks real good in some parts of it. So okay. That's cool. Oh no, we don't want to look at that yet. Already looked at that article. I've just lost my way entirely. So aside from Brent's funny joke, what does everyone here think about this film? Are you excited for it? Does this seem like something that it will get you to the box office? And speaking of the box office, actually, there's one more thing to talk about in terms of this wonderful film, and that has to do with Universal and how they plan on distributing Oppenheimer. So according to Deadline, and this is coming from Jill Goldsmith, Donna Langley says Universal will accommodate Christopher Nolan's 100-day theatrical window, sees less day-and-date stunting, kind of like what Halloween Kills is doing right now, and is awaiting Peacock roadmap, which I don't know what that is really referring to, but maybe we'll find out a bit more as we look into this. Donna Langley, and this is to quote the article, chair of Universal Film Entertainment, said the studio will accommodate a 100-day theatrical release for Christopher Nolan's next film, but that's an exception, not the rule, as windows inevitably shorten. Separately, she said she expects fewer stunting day-and-day releases on Peacock, but more studio originals directed to the streamer. So that would then entail less day-and-date films being put into theaters and Peacock on the same day, but it sounds like there would be more films created specifically for Peacock not going to theaters, which is the way of all things. So to quote Donna Langley, look, Chris has a precedent at Warner Brothers in the 20 years he was making movies there, and he was very clever with, I think, everybody that he spoke with. That was something he was looking to do, and so I think that was sort of a point of entry. We are happy to accommodate it, Langley said during a Q&A at a conference hosted by The Information. In general, however, windows will be shorter. We are training consumers to expect movies earlier. Hear that? You're being trained, consumers. I mean, that's always the case. To continue quoting Donna Langley, I am obviously thrilled that they made the decision to come with Universal, she said about referring to the director's decision to take his next film, about J. Robert Oppenheimer, to Universal. Nolan was an outspoken critic of Warner's decision to make its entire 2021 slate day and date in theaters and on HBO Max, but Langley said Universal had been setting the groundwork for some time. It took conversations over a number of years, actually with myself and with Jeff Shell, where he was with us in the film group. He is a huge fan of Chris, and he really put the time and effort in there. Shell is CEO of parent NBC Universal. The windows will get shorter, she said, because it just makes practical sense, since film cycles through their prime theatrical revenue is 2 to 3 weeks. The analysis is there, it's industry-wide analysis, and streamers were nudging things that way even before COVID. And I guess that is true, and it's not something that we really talk about much anymore. It's that films make most of their box office in the first 3 weeks, and the kind of box office juggernaut that is something like Avengers Endgame or even Titanic is exceedingly rare in this day and age. Like, just think about what it took to have Endgame be the biggest film of the year. It was literally the season finale of a 20 episode season where all of the episodes cost at least $100 million to make. It's no small feat that Avengers Endgame was able to perform the way that it did, especially in the current market. To continue going back to the article, but the studio is committed to theatrical windows and working on the assumption that theatrical will be back next year. We may get off to a bit of a slow start depending on what happens with COVID and during the flu season. Asked how Peacock has changed her job, Langley chuckled, yeah, I think, look, when a company starts to orient around a new growth initiative, in the case of Peacock, of course this impacts every part of the business. Our responsibility is to do what we can to further that initiative and help drive growth. Many have asked, asked how many, I should probably just not skip entire paragraphs. It's early days, but we anticipate having a really significant role there to the extent that film content will play there, which we imagine that it will. Of course, movies will be on your platform. I don't think anyone was in question about that. We have done a couple of day-and-date releases. We are about to put Halloween Kills onto the platform and in theaters at the same time. I don't think we are going to do much stunting like that. I think it's going to be more about us making originals for Peacock going forward. Asked how many, she said, I don't know yet is the simple answer to that. As you probably read in the news this week, they just made a new hire, so we are eagerly awaiting some news, hopefully driven by data, that will give us a roadmap of just want they want and what they want it and how much of what we want they want. What the fuck is this quote? That will give us a roadmap of just want they want and when they want it and how much of what we want they want. Okay. That was not the best sentence, but it was a direct quote, so I guess I'll let it slide. So from the sounds of it, Christopher Nolan will get his 100 days in theater, which, for those of you keeping track at home, is about 3 months, a little over 3 months, which is pretty unheard of, actually, in the current times. Think about how quickly, Black Widow was day and date. Shang-Chi, I think, will be getting onto Disney Plus in November. I think middle November. They're doing it for like Disney Plus Day. And that came out early September. So that's 2 months? About 2 months. So even that had a shorter window than what Nolan is being guaranteed for his Oppenheimer film. So I think this will be something that we just don't see anymore. A 100-day theatrical window. Good for you, Nolan. Good for you that you were actually able to do it, and you were still able to convince him to shoot on film. Let's look at the chat. Nolan was the best director, then Dunkirk, then Tenet. Now he was pretty awful, and I cut my ratings for Inception and The Dark Knight. Wow, so your feelings towards Nolan because of Dunkirk and Tenet, they've now caused you to go back and reevaluate and reassess his work, and it's not as favorable now, huh? Oof, that ain't good. Nolan name also tarnished Reminiscence because the Nolan brothers' wife made the movie. But like a lot of people, yes, it is certainly her movie. She is a director of it. It was also produced by David S. Goyer, who is the one of the main producer of all of what the Nolans do. I think probably more so in the case of what they do for television. But I do also think that Reminiscence was very, it didn't strike me as being Nolan-esque, I guess is what I'm saying. Although I guess in the way that it deals with memory and things like that, I'm sure you could draw a fairly straight line from Inception to it. I don't know. I still like Reminiscence, but I've talked about that in the past. Probably make a video about it at some point in the future. So now let's get on to something completely different. This is a bit of news that I saw pop up that was pretty cool. You've all seen Hellraiser, right? Actually, you may not have, because I only saw Hellraiser for the first time, within the last year, maybe the last 2 years. But there is a new Hellraiser coming. It sounds like they are actually rebooting the entire franchise, which is a good thing because I think Hellraiser is now on its like seventh or eighth sequel, and it's just being shit on by everybody. Like nobody likes these movies anymore. They're pretty terrible. So the new Hellraiser has cast Jamie Clayton to play Pinhead, as according to this headline, Spyglass Hulu movie sets cast, and Clive Barker, who is alive, that's news to me, is set to produce. This is coming to us from Anthony D'Alessandro, and this is being put out by Deadline. So let's get into this article. Spyglass Media Group and Hulu have made official the upcoming cast of David Bruckner's reboot of Hellraiser, as well as the fact that the movie is headed to the later streamer. Sense8 and the L Word Generation Q actress Jamie Clayton has been named as the new Pinhead, a role originally played by Doug Bradley. And Hellraiser architect Clive Barker is joining the production, which has already wrapped, as producer. Does that mean that Clive Barker is joining after they finished filming it, or he joined before and they're now just announcing it? Because like if he's joining as a producer after they've already shot it, there's not much he can do other than just have his input on the final cut of the film, which is important, but not. I don't know. I feel like you're just missing out on the opportunity to actually put your stamp on a film by not being there during the shooting process. Spyglass and Hulu also confirmed that which has been out there on the genre sites, and that's that Grand Army actress Odessa Ezion will star in the movie. Rounding out the cast are Brandon Flynn from 13 Reasons Why and Ratchet, Goran Visjic from The Boys and ER, Drew Starkey from Outer Banks and Love, Simon, Adam Faison from Everything's Gonna Be Okay, Into the Dark, Afi Hins from Normal People and Anne Boleyn, Selena Lowe from Boss Level, and Chaim Abbas from Blade Runner 2049 and Succession. Also boarding as producer is Mark Tuberoff, who, with Barker, joins Phantom 4's David S. Goyer. We were just talking about him, and Keith Levine. Bruckner is helming off a script by Ben Collins and Luke Petrosky, who also wrote The Night House, which is getting lots of good reviews right now, and Super Dark Times, which I have not seen. And the story is being written by Goyer. And then I'm sure there's just a bunch of glad-handing PR bullshit here at the very end. A little bit of other context. Through 4 movies released between 1987 and 1996, the Hellraiser movies have grossed just under $50 million, but have long been cult titles for genre fans. 6 more features were created for the home market, with the franchise extending to graphic novels and merchandise. So 10 films in total. And that total, like 4 movies grossing $50 million, that is not much. But as the article says, these movies are not about the box office. It's about watching it at home. It's definitely where I saw the first Hellraiser for the very first time. So I'm pretty hyped about this. And I know that my yawning doesn't accurately portray that, but I am pretty excited to see this actress Jamie Clayton play the role of Hellraiser. She's definitely done good work. I did like her in Sense8, and I think she's going to be able to bring a much different take on Pinhead, absolutely. But considering the ways that this film series have always played with aspects of like BDSM aesthetics and looks and things like this, I think there's an opportunity here to create a very memorable version of Pinhead, and I'm really into this idea overall. But let me know, have you guys seen Hellraiser? What do you think of it? And is this a good casting decision? I think it is. But I am an overly positive person when I'm live streaming on the internet. You guys should see me when the cameras turn off, though. I hate everything except for Rocco. Rocco is always in my heart. Except when he bites my foot. Then he's a little piece of shit. But that's rare. That's a fairly rare thing. So yeah, happy about this. Pretty happy about this. And now I will take another sip of tea because there's 3 articles coming back to back that will need some talking done about them. Good stuff. And that's because, of course, dear cinephiles, we got to talk about what's going on in Union Land. So, this goes back to October 7th, so this news is now about 4 days old, and we'll get more and more updated on IATSE as we go through these articles. The first big one that I wanted to point out, and there's been a ton of stuff written about the IATSE negotiations so far, but I wanted to touch on kind of the bigger pieces. So this one is coming to us from Gene Mattis, coming from Variety. IATSE negotiations update. Studios agree to 10-hour turnarounds, but a deal remains a way off. And turnaround here refers to the amount of time that is mandated be in between the time that you wrap from set and the time that you arrive at set the next day. So your wrap time, the time between your wrap time and your call time. Now, the problem right off the bat with turnaround time is that there's no actual punishment for violating it. That's just how you start getting into overtime. So if you're on a film set and you're working an 11+1, which means, you know, your call time is 7 a.m., that means you work until 7 p.m. The only thing that really means is that once you get past 7 p.m. in the evening, you start accruing overtime. So like 1.5 rate, right? It's the same thing with turnaround. So if, say, you go from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., the earliest then they could bring you in as a call time for the next day would be 5 a.m. If they wanted to bring you in earlier than that, say 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., they still could put that on the schedule, and all they would be doing is saying to themselves, well, I guess that means we'll have to pay this person 2 hours of overtime in order to bring them in 2 hours before we are legally allowed to, based on this agreement. So it's good that they are agreeing to this, and to be honest, it's still low. Like as I mentioned, when I was working on union stuff, it was an 11+1 with a 12-hour turnaround. So you work for 12 hours and you had 12 hours off, and anything beyond that, you're going into overtime. So 10-hour turnaround is still not great in relation to what other people get in the industry. So to quote, excuse me. To quote the article, the studios have made some concession on IATSE's demands regarding long production hours, but an agreement still remains a ways off, according to an update from one IATSE local on Thursday. Dave O'Farrell, the business agent of IATSE Local 487, told members that the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers had agreed to a 10-hour turnaround times on all productions. He also said that there have been movement on weekend turnarounds, one of the union's top priorities. Negotiators are hoping to avert a strike, which would shut down TV and film production across the country. More than 52,000 IATSE members voted over the weekend to authorize IATSE's, and this would have been last weekend, to authorize IATSE's chief Matthew Delobe to call a strike if the union demands are not met. There has been some progress in negotiations, but not enough, O'Farrell reported. While they may be at the table, we are still a ways off from a deal. The AMPTP is pushing back to see where they can create cracks, but the IA sentiment is to bargain hard and get what we are due. So this is good. It's good to hear that the union is sticking to their guns. I once again think that a 10-hour turnaround is too short, but if that's what the union has agreed to go after, then good. It's also being said here that the union is also seeking a 54-hour turnaround on weekends. So if you were to wrap at 7 p.m. on Friday, that means that you would not be allowed to be brought into work until 54 hours from that wrap time. So to do that math, what would be 7 p.m. Sunday would be 48 hours, and then add on 6 hours past that. So they would be allowed to bring you in at 1 a.m. on Monday, I guess. That is still not great turnaround in my mind. It should be at least 60 hours. Or no, at least what? No, I think 58 hours. 56 hours. Yeah, it should be 56 hours. I don't know why they would go for such a short amount of time. So I'm just going to jump over to the chat quickly. And Dory was saying, if I was a union member, I want 40 hours straight time and double pay for anything after 40 hours. It's actually built in a bit differently. for the film. It's kind of been uh, acknowledged, I guess, in Hollywood, and I guess this is the way that it's been done for a long time, is that the typical working day on a film set or on a TV set is 12 hours. It's an 11 plus 1, as I've mentioned a few times. Um, so you get essentially what 12 times 5, so 60 hours a week at straight time, and then for a couple of hours after that it's time and a half, and then a couple of hours after that, and I'm not sure what exactly the timing is in, then it gets into 2.5 times. And then I also believe that if you have to work 6 days in a row, the sixth day is automatically at time and a half. And then if you have to work 7 days in a row, then like the seventh day is automatically at 2.5 times. So you can make a whole lot of cash that way. But to your point, Dory, saying double pay for anything after 40 hours, it's not quite that good, but then it also gets better than that. It just depends on the amount of hours that you are working in the day. And once again, if your turnaround time is cut into, and this applies even for overtime. So if you do an 11 plus 1 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then you work 2 hours of overtime, so you actually end at 9 p.m., then the 10-hour turnaround is effective from your actual wrap time of 9 p.m. So then if you do not get the 10 hours and you have to come in even before that, then the hours before college you're working also count as overtime. So this is how, when you're working on a film set, overtime can really start racking up quickly, especially if you work a job like transport where you have to be in way before everybody else. As an example, when you have to go to set, all like if say you're an actor and you have to go to set, everybody who needs to be there to service you, the actor, already has to be there and set up and ready to go. So we're talking about people driving in all of the hair and makeup trucks, all of the wardrobe trucks, all of the grip and electrical trucks, and all that stuff. So those transport drivers need to be picking up those vehicles and getting them to set. So that's when their day starts. And then they have to then park that stuff there, get the trucks up and running, make sure all the electrical is being rung, is being like put out all over the place so that these vehicles can actually have power. And then the people who work inside those trucks, the hair and makeup, the wardrobe people, the grips, the gaffers, etc., that's when they show up. But then that's not even when the actors show up yet. And once again, this is all just kind of very basic stuff. A lot of this could change depending on the type of film that you're making. A zombie film, for example, that has a lot of zombie extras, you could have makeup artists working like almost 24-hour days, which means that if any set moving needs to happen, then those drivers are probably also working 24-hour days, because the drivers need to be there to keep the trucks working. So there's just so much time that is being spent on film sets by these people, and that once again is how overtime can start accruing so quickly for these members or for these workers. Getting back into some of the demands which we've talked about, but it's good to always go over them again. O'Farrell has reported that the AMPTP has made small movement on two other union priorities: meal penalties and new media. The union wants to increase meal penalties as a way to force productions to break for lunch, and is also seeking to bring streaming productions into line with wages put on traditional projects. And this seems wild to me that they even need to do this, because on the union gigs that I've worked on, and even the non-union gigs where I'm working with union people, like, lunch is sacred. You just do it. And if you say no lunch, or we're working through lunch and you're not getting that time back, people are pissed and they hate you for it. So I'm surprised that like this is something that they've been able to get away with. The union also wants higher wages for the lowest paid workers in the bargaining unit, which include writers' assistants and script coordinators. O'Farrell reported that wages and benefits are still at issue. So there's a lot still going on and a lot being said, but that will actually be kind of an interesting thing to talk about when we get into the next article about the IATSE strike, which comes to us from Deadline and is reported by David Robb. IATSE says contract talks with AMPTP are fluid, urges members to disregard any information you read in the press. So everything we just went over might not actually be true. But why did I talk about it in the first place? I think it was still a good idea to go over what the IATSE demands are and potential progress that they have made. So now it appears that this article has been updated with Matthew Loeb's full message to membership, which should give us some insight into where things were at on Friday. IATSE has told its members that ongoing negotiations with the AMPTP for a new film and TV contract are fluid, and that members should disregard any information you read in the press, as it is not necessarily an accurate representation of what is actually occurring. And it looks like this then talks about the strike authorization. Our people have basic human needs. Yes, of course. Get into their demands. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers said Monday that it remains committed to reaching an agreement that will keep the industry working. So this is as of today. This must have been recently updated. We deeply value our IATSE crew members. We just force them to work without lunches, though. That's how much we value them. And are committed to working with them to avoid shutting down the industry at such a pivotal time, particularly since the industry is still recovering from the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. A deal can be made at the bargaining table, but it will require both parties working together in good faith with a willingness to compromise and to explore new solutions to resolve the open issues. Here's the union's latest update dated October 8th and posted on the IATSE GRIPS Local 80, followed by Loeb's full message to IATSE members. To quote, as the details of the basic agreement negotiations are fluid and are subject to change from moment to moment, the 13 Hollywood locals have agreed to keep the details of the process in the bargaining room for strategic purposes. So I imagine this is being said after whoever it was in this last article we were looking at, after they were getting into, I guess it was, David O'Farrell. After he was getting into details about negotiations, there was then a talking to that happened between the 13 IATSE locals saying, like, let's just keep this secret for now so we can actually still maintain some sort of negotiating posture and strength. To continue quoting what was said in the release, we understand that there is a great demand for updates and details on negotiations, and when the time is appropriate, those communications will come directly from the bargaining committee. For now, the negotiators for both sides need the room to maneuver at the bargaining table. In the interim, please disregard any information you read in the press as it is not necessarily an accurate representation of what is actually occurring. We will continue to meet again tomorrow, being Friday, which was last Friday, in an effort to reach an agreement. All specific details of the negotiation will be made available to you, the members, just as soon as they are agreed to by both sides and can be released. And then we get Loeb's message, which I imagine harkens on the same points. And he's making some pretty strong claims here, which is good to see. Mostly I'm just seeing like this question and response thing right now. To quote it just quickly, at some point a decision will be made on whether the negotiations are moving well enough to continue the talks or whether it is time to take action. Are we at that point yet? No, we are not. Will the employers be allowed to string us along? No. Are we at the point where we call upon our members to put down their tools and take a stand? Not right now. If we need to ask our members to take a stand, are we ready? Yes, we are. There's just a lot of questions in response here. Are more meetings scheduled? Yes. We'll be meeting with the employers this afternoon, which would have been Friday afternoon. We are willing and able to meet deep into the night if it gets us to where we need to be. So the union letting us know, IATSE union letting us know that they are willing to do the work. They are willing to sit and willing to talk and willing to get this thing done, to do whatever it takes. All really up to the AMPTP to see if they're willing to cut a deal. And then this is a bit of an update which came from the evening, Friday evening, from David Robb over at Deadline. So IATSE Chief Matt Loeb, who we were just looking at his comments, tells members a deal or a strike is days, not weeks away, and the talks were to resume on Saturday. So just letting his membership know that if something does happen, it's probably going to be this week based on that. And to quote the article, IATSE and the AMPTP have concluded their fourth day of do-or-die bargaining and will resume negotiations for a new film and TV contract on Saturday. But if a deal is to be reached and a strike averted, it will have to be made soon. It's a matter of days, not weeks, IATSE President Matthew Loeb said tonight. Last weekend, the union's members voted resoundingly over 98% in favor of authorizing a strike. After 4 days of bargaining, talks concluded on Friday without an agreement being reached. Negotiations resumed Saturday, the union said in a statement Friday. While we maintain committed to the bargaining process, there will come a point where words must be replaced by action. Earlier today, Thom Davis, business manager of GRIP's Local 80 and IATSE's second vice president, said that some progress has been made during the talks, but that we are still far apart on some of the key issues. And that is about all we know so far. I did not see any updates coming out after negotiations finished on Saturday. So I think this is kind of the holding pattern that we're in, at least for now. Although from the sounds of it, if the union and the AMPTP are still far apart on a number of key issues, and considering the strength of IATSE's strike authorization, I think we are headed for a strike unless the AMPTP really gives in to union demands, which hopefully they do. Hopefully they do, because no one wants a strike. No one wants a strike. We all want the movies to keep coming. We want those movies so badly. But the union needs to protect its members, and I am on their side in this case. But let me know what you guys think about this in the chat. Also seeing that we have a few extra viewers than normal. Hello and welcome. Please make sure to like this stream while you're here. And let me know if there's any little bits of film news that you would like me to discuss. I'm kind of going over everything that made headlines in the film world over the last 3 or 4 days. This show happens every day of the week. Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. until whenever we're done. And if there's something that you want to chat about or would like me to discuss, just let me know. I'll look it up. We'll talk about it. It'll be a fun time for everybody. But until you do that, I'm just going to keep talking about things that I want to talk about. And the next one, which is something that we had discussed last week, and this is kind of the news that we're going to start see popping up a lot over the next couple of weeks and over the next couple of months, are different countries submitting or letting us know which films are going to be submitted as the as that country's pick for the Best International Oscar category. So this news is coming to us from Nancy Tartaglioni. I'm so sorry about your last name and me speaking it terribly. That's the part I'm sorry about, not your last name actually being that. Anyways, and this is being published on Deadline. So one of the big things we were talking about last week is which movie will France pick. We were talking a bit about Happening last week and how it's probably going to be the one that is picked because it is something that is a bit more easy to stomach compared to Titane, which is the movie that I think we all want to go to the Oscars, or at least it's the film that I want to go to the Oscars, because if it got nominated, it would be so funny for them to like try to talk about it or try to describe it. And also, I think it's very deserving. I've not seen Happening yet, but I think a film like Titane, winning the Palme d'Or, winning the TIFF Midnight Madness Award, getting all of the critical praise that it's gotten, let's just give it its due, put it in the Oscars, see what happens. But let's get in a little bit more into this article, and it'll tell us a little bit more about this race and how it's planning on shaping up. So, to quote the article, France's Oscar Selection Committee has shortlisted 3 titles as the country's potential submission for the International Feature Oscar race. They include Audrey Tautou Venice Golden Lion winner Happening, also known as L'Événement in French, en français. Julia Ducournau's Cannes Palme d'Or laureate Titane, and Cédric Jiménez's Bacchanal, also known as The Stronghold, which ran out of competition on the Riviera in July. The two major prize winners, Happening and Titane, were expected to figure among the group, which will now be whittled down with the official entry announced on October 12th, which is tomorrow. So that's news that we're going to be talking about tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on when they actually announce it. Although given the time change, I imagine it'll be tomorrow morning. So get subscribed and turn on the notification bell because we are talking about that news tomorrow. I guarantee it, even though I can't. Titane was released locally by Defana Distribution in July after making history as only the second film directed by a woman to win the top Cannes honor. I'm also guessing it's the first film that features a woman having sex with a car getting the top honor. Neon picked up the domestic release for it, so they're handling it in North America. The story follows a series of unexplained crimes. A father is reunited with a son who's missing for over 10 years, which is kind of what the movie's about. They're not leaving it, they're leaving out some pretty key details. In its long line is also billed as Titan, a metal highly resistant to heat and corrosion with high tensile strength alloys, which is actually a pretty funny way of describing the film. Happening, which IFC has in the US, will go out via Wild Bunch in France in November. The 1963 set abortion drama is based on the book by Annie Ernaux and centers on a bright young student with a promising future ahead of her. But when she becomes pregnant, she sees the opportunity to finish her studies and escape the constraints of her social background, disappearing. With her final exams fast approaching and her belly growing, she resolves to act, even if she has to confront shame and pain, even if she must risk prison to do so. And this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of us look at The Happening, or not The Happening, but just Happening, as the front runner here. It's more politically relevant in the current day and age with the rise of authoritarianism and fascism around the world. We're also seeing an increase in the amount of laws being made to police women's bodies. In Texas, that is the most egregious example thus far, although I'm sure there are going to be other examples of it down the road. Because if there's one thing that authoritarians like to do, it's telling people what they can and can't do with their body. And that's exactly what abortion is. Our anti-abortion laws, that's exactly what they are. So I think for that reason alone, I think Happening has a bit of a better chance. And like just based on what I've seen of Titan, I imagine that Happening is a bit more of a digestible film. Like even if there's like a 2 or 3 minute scene in The Happening where a woman gives herself an abortion and it's very graphic, it's still probably more palatable than Titan, which is wild. But also Titan is just really good. So I want Titan to win still. And then let's talk a little bit about Bac Nord, because I haven't really heard much about it. From Studio Canal, released in France in August and has been critical and box office success with nearly 2 million tickets sold. Netflix acquired worldwide rights outside of France during Cannes. The story is set in Marseille's north suburbs, where the police brigade is under pressure to improve their arrest and drug seizure stats. When assigned a high-profile operation, the team engages in a mission where moral and professional boundaries are pushed to their breaking point. So this kind of sounds like Les Miserables, which came out a couple of years ago. Similar kind of premise, focusing on cops doing cop things. So yeah, I'll watch it if it comes out. I guess it'll be on Netflix at some point. It doesn't sound like it is yet, but it will be eventually. So now we know all 3 films that are going to be vying for this submission to the Oscars. I still hope it's Titan. It's probably going to be The Happening, and I will watch Bac Nord when it comes out on Netflix, even though there's probably just too much propaganda out there, although this may not be a propaganda film depending on how they approach the subject matter. But I suppose we will wait and see. So now I'm going to continue on, less of a news article, but something that popped up and I thought was interesting. And actually, before we move on, let me know in the chat who you think France should put forward as best international film. And if you've seen an international film that you think is better than Titan, because I think that movie has gotten the most international praise and the most international press. And so I think if it were to get nominated, it would stand the best chance, but it still has to get through this first hurdle. So if you've seen something that you think could beat Titan, let me know about that as well. I see Dory's in the chat saying that they're rooting for I'm Your Man, which is the sci-fi romantic comedy film from Germany, which I have not seen yet, but I am hoping to see soon. So it sounds like Dory wants that to win over Titan. So if anyone else out there has an idea about what should win or what could win, let me know. But this is an article that I saw pop up and I thought was pretty interesting. Of course, with Dune coming out this week? No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, because Halloween Kills is the big film coming out this weekend. With Dune coming out in 2 weeks, or a little less than 2 weeks now, of course, we're going to see a ramp up in press about Denis Villeneuve and his journey and everything it took to produce Dune and all of that kind of stuff. And so this is coming from an interview that he did with IndieWire. This article being published by, or being written by Zach Sharf. Villeneuve says it's a miracle he survived Blade Runner 2049. At least I wasn't banned from directing. And what he's actually talking about here, not that he almost died on the set of 2049. That's not what he means by survived. It's that the fact that he was allowed to make movies after Blade Runner 2049 didn't do so well at the box office. And I think actually it's a pretty, I think it's a testament to his actual skill as a filmmaker. The fact that even after 2049 bombed as bad as it did, Warner Brothers was still able to look at him and say, "We know you're really good. You just made a movie that was based on a property that wasn't as popular as we thought. That's something that we will own, that we will try to make better. By the way, why don't we do the exact same thing all over again with Dune?" And from the sounds of it, Dune may be the revenge of Villeneuve on the box office. It could actually end up having a pretty big opening, although to be entirely fair, No Time to Die's performance at the box office has me once again real worried about Dune and its prospects. But yes, back to this article. It's Villeneuve is essentially very happy that he still is allowed to make movies in Hollywood. To quote the article, Denis Villeneuve has probably opened up about Blade Runner 2049 misfiring at the box office, and he told MTV's Happy Sad Confused podcast this week that he's genuinely relieved he is still able to make movies after that experience. The film was a box office bomb in the United States, failing to cross the $100 million mark despite a production and marketing budget that was reportedly over $300 million. 2049 is said to have cost Alcon Entertainment at least $80 million. As Villeneuve said, "The miracle for me about Blade Runner 2049 is the following. I'm still making movies, and you're still talking to me." "I knew that when I did this movie, I flirted with disaster," the filmmaker continued. "I put myself into massive artistic danger. That was walking, as Christopher Nolan said to me once, walking on sacred territory. It's true. It was sacrilegious what I did. I was told, you don't do that. Just the fact that I'm still here making movies, for me, at least I wasn't banned from the filmmaker community. It was a dangerous game." Villeneuve is, of course, still very much making movies, and huge ones at that. The director's Dune adaptation arrives in US theaters and HBO Max on October 22nd, and has already begun rolling out overseas to impressive box office numbers. Should Dune perform well enough, Warner Brothers and Legendary Entertainment will greenlight the next film in his intended two-part Dune adaptation. In an interview last year, Villeneuve discussed how different it was to tackle Blade Runner 2049 and Dune. With Blade Runner and Dune, it's two different pressures, Villeneuve said. With Blade Runner, I had to be respectful of Ridley Scott's masterpiece. It was more of an act of love. Here, it's totally different. I'm dealing with the pressure of the dreams I had as a teenager. I was a big dreamer. I dreamed big when I was younger. That teenager in me is totalitarian, and I had to please those dreams. That was the biggest challenge. Villeneuve has been vocal from the start about his Dune adaptation being driven by the images and dreams that he envisioned while reading Frank Herbert's novel as a teenager. For this reason, Villeneuve has told fans that his Dune will have no stylistic similarities to David Lynch's 1984 film Dune adaptation. Although there are some scenes that are, and these are of course scenes from the book, there are a number of scenes in Villeneuve's Dune that are absolutely in Villeneuve's version. So, there's always going to be a very strong point of comparison between both films, because I think, especially with Lynch's version, he spent a lot of time on the first half of the book, which is basically the half of the book that Villeneuve is most concerned with in his adaptation. So there's always going to be some crossovers. There's always going to be some very obvious points of comparison. A number of scenes appear in both the Lynch version and the Villeneuve version, and I think yes, the style is different. It's Dune is not as wet as David Lynch's Dune is, but I guess that was to be expected. So let me know in the chat if you are still excited about Dune, if you're feeling okay about waiting another 2 weeks to see it, and what you think about all of the impressions that you've been hearing online, because Dune, of course, came out at TIFF. I saw it probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now at TIFF, and it's been released internationally, so a lot of the reviews are out. We have a pretty good idea of what people are saying about it. So yeah, give me your thoughts. Let me know how you're feeling about it. Story saying, I predict Dune Part 2 will be made for streaming, but not for theaters. That's the thing. I don't know if you do Dune Part 2 for a budget that would be more appropriate for streaming, as opposed to just doing it for a feature film budget of, say, $150 million to $200 million and releasing it to theaters. Although I don't know what would be required for Villeneuve's Part 2. And once again, the main cost is going to be the actors. I'm hoping that when they all sign their contracts, they all sign contracts that included figures and the money for the second film. So that is not something that needed to be renegotiated. Because you can imagine that Timothee Chalamet, if Wonka is a breakout success, as an example, he will then just ask for more money, because you can't do Dune Part 2 without Timothee Chalamet, of course. So that, once again, could get in the way of them doing a, say, lower budget version of Dune 2 for streaming only. Because if you're going to have to pay Chalamet a bunch of money anyways, you might as well just put it in theaters and try to try to use the theatrical window as even a way of promoting the streaming release of the feature, and to make some of that money back. That all said, I'm still hopeful for Dune, but as I also said, No Time to Die's box office really makes me think that Dune is going to have a bit of trouble making its money back and getting Dune Part 2 greenlit. It's also been said in the past that Dune will be evaluated by WB as kind of a theater plus HBO type thing, and if there's enough interest about Dune on HBO Max, then that could be what ends up greenlighting the next film. And maybe the theatrical box office won't be the main determining factor for whether or not we get Dune Part 2. But I also think that if Dune Part 1 just fails, then it won't really matter how well it does in streaming. So I see that we've got even some more people joining us. Hello. Thank you very much. Just finishing up talking about Dune and its chances, in Villeneuve wondering whether or not he should have survived the making of Blade Runner 2049 to make more films. If you're just clicking on the thumbnail, I'm sure you're looking for chats about this particular image, about our very good boy Timothee Chalamet dressing up as Willy Wonka. We've already talked about this. This is the first thing that we talk about on the stream. So if you're clicking onto this now, hoping for this discussion about Willy Wonka, I'm sorry, it happened at the beginning, but you weren't here for that. So maybe if you have some things to chat about, or things that you want to say about this, let me know in the chat and we can come back and talk about it a little bit more. But if you want to be part of the discussion when we actually go live, please make sure to subscribe to Cinemateq and to hit the notification bell so you know when we go live, even though it's every day at 9 a.m. from Monday to Friday. That is the other thing that you should know. And while you're here, well, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I lost my train of thought. While you're here, please like the live stream. I would appreciate that. YouTube loves that engagement, and I'm just trying to grow this little community of people who can just talk about film every now and again. And by every now and again, I mean every single day. So with that said, I'm actually going to take a quick break, let my old voice box rest just a moment, and see if there's any new late breaking news. So with that, dear cinephiles, you know the drill. I will be right back.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. You understand?
Back in a minute.
Be right back. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back, Dan.
Okay, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Don't get dressed.
I'll be back.
Be right back with a search warrant.
I'm coming right back.
I'll be right back.
Hey, buddy, you pay for the drinks. I gotta go to the John. I'll be right back. Gonna introduce Mr. Thick Dick to Mr. Urinal Cake.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. You understand?
Back in a minute.
Be right back.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back, Dan.
Okay, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Don't get dressed.
I'll be back.
Be right back with a search warrant.
I'm coming right back.
I'll be right back.
Hey, buddy, you pay for the drinks. I gotta go to the John. I'll be right back. Gonna introduce Mr. Thick Dick to Mr. Urinal Cake.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. You understand?
Back in a minute.
Be right back.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back, Dan.
Okay, I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. Don't get dressed.
I'll be back.
Be right back with a search warrant.
I'm coming right back.
Hello, everyone. We are back from the break. Checking in on the breaking news. There isn't a lot to discuss. There's a couple of fluff pieces that were released since I last checked, including Tom Cruise mix it up with fans at a baseball game, and people are loving that. That one coming from Cinema Blend. I'm sure, actually, that makes a lot of sense. Cinema Blend would be putting that up. Tom Cruise has been showing up at a lot of random sporting events. I feel like he was also at the US Open or at Wimbledon or something like that, and everyone was like, oh my god, Tom Cruise, he's here in public, and he's with the Royals. He's so relatable. He's just like all of us. He's not though. I still like him as an actor though. As an actor, I like him. So with that said, there was actually one piece of actual film news that ties into something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. You could say that it's going to be a Scream. Do you get it? Do you understand what we're going to be talking about? Doesn't matter, because right now we need to talk about HBO picking up the rights to a documentary from an Oscar winner. This news is coming to us from Matt Grobar for Deadline. Simple as water. HBO nabs rights to documentary from Oscar winner Megan Millan. And this, of course, is something that we need to consider when we are talking about the Oscars. you know those things that we talk about on this channel sometime. So this could be a potential Oscar contender for this coming year. Let's get a bit more into this article. HBO Documentary Films has acquired worldwide and streaming rights to Simple as Water, a new documentary from Oscar winner Megan Millan, who also did Lost Boys of Sudan and Smile Pinky, which will hit theaters in limited release later this year before debuting on HBO, subsequently becoming available for streaming on HBO Max. And that limited theatrical release will be all that it needs to qualify for the Oscars, so it will be good to go. Millan's film is a meditation on the elemental bonds between parent and child. It takes audiences into Syrian families' quest for normalcy and through a whirlwind of obstacles to build life anew, examining the impact of war, separation, and displacement. The project was filmed in Turkey, Greece, Germany, Syria, and the US over the course of 5 years. It came to fruition through joint efforts of small crews scattered across the world. Many of those involved behind the scenes are Syrian refugees themselves. I think Simple as Water as a family love story celebrating the elemental bonds between parent and child, Millan said of the film, which made its world premiere at the 2021 Tribeca Film Festival. How do you preserve your child's right to joy and to move slowly out of innocence when the very basics of having your family safe and together are ripped away? I'm grateful for the trust and collaboration of the families in the film and to our wonderful diverse crew from all over the world who came together to craft these family portraits, the director added. We are thrilled to have HBO bringing this story out into the world with their passion and dynamism. I can't imagine a better home. And then there's just a little bit talking about who all produced the stuff. And just, I guess, briefly, a point that perhaps is something that you will care about, because I do. The cinematographers on the film were Lars Scree, who also did The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence, Michael Shin, who did Eyes on the Prize, and Rafa Salamet, a young woman credited with a pseudonym who must remain anonymous for her safety. So, just based on the skill involved here, The Act of Killing is a very well-known, well-respected documentary. Michael Chin, can't really remember what his work looks like, and actually very interested to see about the young woman who has to use a pseudonym, otherwise she may be in danger. Hopefully she will be okay. But yes, this is something that I am interested in seeing, and it sounds like we won't have to wait very long, because in theaters in 2021 means sometime in the next 2 months, pretty much, because the year's almost over. Everybody, surprise! Isn't that awful to realize? Yes, like me, you have wasted most of your year. But next year will be better, probably. I promise. I can't promise that. All I can promise you is that I will still be drinking this tea. This wonderfully average, very room temperature green tea. So congrats to Simple of Water for being picked up, and best of luck to you in the future. Now we move on to some awards adjacent news. Oh, first of all, I have to check in on the chat because Dory just said Tom Cruise best movie featuring baseball is A Few Good Men. I will not argue with that. The baseball scenes in A Few Good Men are fun. So this news coming to us from Naman Ramachadaran. Hope I got that somewhat close. BAFTA has canceled its Los Angeles Britannia Awards for the second year running. Now, the degree to which these awards count or matter, I mean, they don't really, to be perfectly honest, they don't really matter to that kind of degree. But it is meant to be kind of like the Los Angeles outpost of the BAFTA Awards, where they take a more Hollywood-centric look at what is going on and what they should be giving awards to. So it is, of course, an indicator of sorts. And it is one that we will no longer have available to us this time around. I'm just seeing here that apparently the stream is having issues and that there are maybe some drop frames or some skipped frames. Just wondering how the stream, the issue that the other one had. And yeah. Oh, the stream has disconnected. Oh, Jesus Christ. And now I'm getting conflicting information from my streaming platform and from YouTube. It says the connection is excellent, but I'm also experiencing minor issues. Come on. The thing that I hate yeah, Dory's saying I am not Gucci. The thing that I hate about this is that I have already done all of the correct things. You know? I have already done the things to make it work properly, and it's the program ignoring me. It's ignoring me. And that is what's so frustrating about this. I am telling it what bitrate I want it to run at, and it's like, oh, we're totally gonna run at a different thing. Actually, Dory, that is a good point. I was running on Wi-Fi when I normally run on Ethernet, but that's not really the issue that's being caused by the bitrate. But I did just turn my Wi-Fi off, so we're now running on Ethernet, so hopefully that does something. But like the frames being skipped is not a CPU issue for me, so that's not a problem. I am using a wired connection, and I have been for a while. The issue here is that the streaming platform that I'm using, I have it set to go at like 12,000 kilobytes a second, which is totally fine. It's probably a bit overkill, to be completely honest, for what I'm actually streaming at. But I like to have a little bit of like headroom just to get the image quality up a little higher. And the issue here is that the streaming software that I'm using is actually going at like 80,000 to 112,000 kilobytes a second. And that is way over what I told it to do. So the machine that I'm on is capable of sending information at that range. But YouTube can't really receive data above 56,000 kilobytes a second. And that is, of course, a huge problem. So it's like my streaming platform is just ignoring me and doing what it wants. And it sucks because it's doing something that I just need it to not do. Like just calm down and run at the amount that I told you to run at, and all of these problems go away. And I don't know why this is happening. So Dory, you're saying that there's a lot of buffering going on. Is this kind of like the issue we had in the past where my my voice, like you can still hear me, like my vocals are consistent, it's just the video that's being choppy? Or I guess if it's buffering, then it's also my voice also being bad. I wish I knew what the issue here was. I don't want performance metrics. I want... God damn. I don't... Like, we did this yesterday. I'm still using the new one, Brent. I used this same program yesterday, and there were absolutely no issues at all. So let's see. So it's the audio that's fine. It's annoying, though. Recording. I changed a recording setting, but I don't know how that would do anything. Use stream encoder. Done. I don't think that changed anything because I'm not recording. All right. Let's take a screen cap of this. The only thing to do now is complain. Oh, God. Let's see if I can get Streamlabs to help me out. Sorry for the interruption, everybody. I just want to see if I can get this handled. Dory, I don't think that's the issue, and I appreciate your helping me try to troubleshoot this, but like I know what the issue is. I just don't know how to solve it. Like the fact that I've told this program that I'm using to stream at 12,000 kilobytes a second, and it is right now currently streaming at 120,000 kilobytes a second at a range that is double what YouTube accepts. Like that's the issue here. The reason why the stream is buffering is because I'm sending too much data to YouTube. And I don't think that is an issue of something being updated in the background or anything like that. It's a software issue with this program, which was also an issue with the last piece of software I was using. And the thing that's frustrating to me is that I have not changed anything. I streamed yesterday using these exact same settings, and it was fine. There was no frame drops, there was no interruptions, everything was going at the speed that I told it to, and then that was it. Crazy. So once again, this is not going to be an issue that I'm going to be able to fix on stream today, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll be able to get better customer service from Streamlabs as opposed to OBS, which is the program I was using before. And then I honestly just don't know what the fix is beyond this. So my apologies, everybody. I am very frustrated by this. I wish there was something I could do to fix this, but I don't know what I don't know how to make this program do what it's supposed to do. You know? Because I've already done all the things that tell it to do everything. Do I limit my bitrate? Will that do anything? Limit it to 12,000? Will that cause it to drop down? So I just turned on a bitrate limiter, and it looks like that is not working either. Huzzah! I'm sorry, everybody. We did get more than halfway through all of the news, so maybe we'll be just shutting this stream down early today, which sucked because one of the things I wanted to show you guys was images from Scream, new screen images. That's gonna be fun. That trailer's coming out soon. Okay. I've sent Streamlabs a message on Twitter. Hopefully they'll get back to me. So I think for today, we're going to call it quits, everybody. I'm sorry for this once again. I'm going to try to figure this out for tomorrow. I just hope I hope you know that this is very frustrating for me and that this is not at all how I want to present this channel. Because how everything looks and how it all works is important. Brent, I'll try that. I'll probably do it first with an unlisted stream or something like that just to check. I think also, yeah, when you say it seemed fine for the first while, I think that was probably just YouTube hoping that the amount of data I was sending would go down, and then I think they just stopped being nice about it. Or it was actually going at a lesser degree, like it was sticking around like 40,000 to 50,000, and now it's just decided to go up to 100,000, and that's what's killing it. So yeah, I'll stop the stream and restart, although if this is the same issue I was having before, it will be persistent. So I will come back if I'm able to, but I'll first try with an unlisted stream to see what happens. Keep an eye out on the channel and on your notifications because we may come back. We will just have to wait and see. So thank you again, everyone, for sticking with me, for trying to help me out, and for participating and talking about the film news with me today. It's always the best part of my day. The worst part of my day is troubleshooting nonsense that shouldn't happen. Technology. When will it work? We don't really know. So I will see you guys soon, and hopefully everything will be fixed. So have a good day if I don't see you. Enjoy your Monday and enjoy your holiday if you are able to not be working today. Have a good one.